welcome back to Voodoo Family Travels. I'm Val. Today we're back in the kitchen. We're going to do a few Irish recipes for St. Patrick's Day weekend. Alright, so I have my little pocket Irish pub cookbook, and we're making the cover recipe, Irish stew. Alright, so I have all my ingredients prepped. It's a very simple recipe, just potatoes, carrots, onions, and meat. I'm using a beef stew meat. The recipe called for lamb shank, but I don't have that readily available in my area. So you're going to preheat your oven to 325 and then just start layering your ingredients in the pan with salt and pepper in between each layer. So I'm going to start with some potatoes. Salt and pepper. And let's add some carrots. And some onions. Some more salt and pepper. Then we'll add some of the meat. Alright, and we'll continue layering and end with the potatoes on the top. Alright, I have everything layered up in the pan. It's pretty full. Then the next step is to add about 18 ounces of water. I have 16 ounces here. I'm going to add what I can because this is the deepest pan that I have with a lid. So we'll see what we can do. Alright, add the rest of the water. Then we're going to cover it with the lid. And it's going to go into the preheated oven. That's 325 degrees Fahrenheit for about 2 hours. So we'll come back when it's ready. Alright, continuing on. Now we're going to take the Irish Granny's bread and baking book, and we're going to make a coffee and walnut cake. So I have two 9-inch pans. It calls for 8-inch pans, but this is what I have, so I'll just reduce the baking time a little bit and check them. So again, we're heating the oven to 325. Alright, so in the bowl of my stand mixer I have 5½ ounces of softened butter and 5½ ounces of granulated sugar. So we're going to beat that up until it's nice and fluffy. Alright, that looks pretty good. So now we're going to add 3 slightly beaten eggs, a little bit at a time. We're going to alternate that with 2/3 of our flour mixture, which we have. It calls for a self-rising flour. I have all-purpose, so I just added a little bit of baking powder and salt to my all-purpose flour, and you need 5½ ounces of self-rising flour for that also. So I added in some of the eggs, And then you add 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder and the rest of the flour. And we'll mix that up. Scrape down the sides a little bit so we can get this all mixed in. Alright, and then the last ingredient for the cake is 4 tablespoons of coffee essence or cold espresso coffee. So coffee essence, from what I'm reading in the recipe, was like a concentrated coffee that they used to have before coffee was real popular in Ireland. So I have some brewed espresso, so I'm going to add that in. And that is it for the cake batter. Alright, so I have the batter in my prepared pans. The recipe says to bake it at 325 Fahrenheit for 30 minutes, but since I have a larger pan and the layers are pretty thin, I'm going to start with 15 minutes and see where we're at. So let's get these in the oven. Alright, it's been 15 minutes, so let's check on these cakes and see what we're looking like. I think they can go just another 5 or 10 minutes. They're looking pretty good. Alright, so it's been another 5 minutes and the cakes are done now, so I'm going to let them cool for about 10 minutes in the pans and then put them on a wire rack to cool the rest of the way, and we'll make the icing in a little while. So I just got the cakes out of the pan to cool, and there was a little tiny bit stuck to the pan, so I tasted it and it tastes amazing. So make this cake. We'll ice it in a little while. Alright, for the buttercream icing, I've got 3.5 ounces of softened butter and 8 ounces of confectioner's sugar, powdered sugar. We're going to blend that up and then add 2 more tablespoons of our cold espresso coffee. And then that'll be the icing. We'll chill it until we're ready to ice the cake. Alright, it's been 2 hours. Let's check on the stew. It's looking good. Nice and bubbly. Some of the potatoes stuck to my lid, but that's alright. We'll get that and serve it up. Alright, the stew is finished, so let's give it a little taste. Very good. Comfort food. Alright, I'm going to ice up the cake. I couldn't find my cake stand, so I'm just putting it on a plate. That'll work. So you're just going to put half of the icing on top of the first layer and the other half on top of the second layer, and then on the sides. It's pretty thick. Alright, and then this is the coffee and walnut cake, so we'll add a few pieces of walnut on the top. That's actually the only place in the recipe that has nuts as decoration on top of the cake. So you can certainly leave them off if you don't like walnuts, but I'll add a few around the cake. And whoever doesn't want it can pick it off. And here's the finished cake. I'm not quite ready for dessert yet, so I'll let y'all know how it tastes in a while. Thank you again for spending a little time with me today in the kitchen. I just want to tell everybody happy St. Patrick's Day, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.